Hi, everybody. My name is Etran, and welcome to Etran Talks. I've had the honor of interviewing the amazing Stuart Gibbs twice, and together we even gave new signed books to an entire elementary school. It's been 2 years since that wonderful experience, and Stuart Gibbs has kept on writing and sharing stories. And in the year 2025, his phenomenal Once Upon a Tim graphic novel series is out in paperback edition. Once Upon a Tim has humor, adventure, and breaks the norms of fairy tale stories. So to kick off this little interview, can you share with readers a little bit about your Once Upon a Tim
Once Upon a
series?
Tim was kind of a idea I'd had. Actually, originally, I thought maybe it would be for an animated feature or even an animated TV show, and because I was trying to come up with an idea for Disney, and I was like everything you guys do is about princesses or royalty. Why don't we do something which is about like one of the other thousands of people who would have lived in the old kingdom? Let's do something about a peasant. And at the time, they were like they thought about it, but it didn't end up happening. So I had this idea kicking around for a long time, and then my publisher said to me one day, like, "Hey, would I think about doing like collaborating with an illustrator and doing something that's skewed maybe a little bit younger than what I'd done so far?" And I thought, oh, this is the perfect place to do Once Upon a Tim. And the ways I'm telling the stories are very different than the ways I would have told them in animation, or whatever. But oh, now my dog has showed up. Okay. But yeah, it was it was a great opportunity for me to sort of revive this idea that I'd had before.
That's awesome. It's kind of a new little path that you're going on, because a lot of your books, specifically from a story standpoint, many of your other series have taken place in a somewhat real world. We're on Earth in them, and there's the CIA involved, there's spies, and these are all real ideas. However, Once Upon a Time takes place in a fairy tale world.
Right.
Can you
Yeah.
share some of the challenges of writing a fully fictional book compared to your other series like Spy School or Fun Jungle?
I mean, I almost think that it actually the challenges are in writing the more realistic thing. One of the great fun things about Tim was that just about anything that I could imagine, I could do. I mean, that's some
Right.
of the fun of this world, as you just say, there's a moment in the first Tim book, just Once Upon a Tim, where all of a sudden I thought, oh, I'm just going to have the horse talk. And I hadn't thought it through at the point, but I was like, oh, it'd just be really funny, like, because that happens in these things. And the horse just starts talking. And then there's like a whole scene where like, I didn't know you could talk. And the horse is like, well, you never asked me anything. And so, I love the scene, but it really was like, because I could just be sitting there in the moment going, oh, like, great, I'll just have the horse start talking, right? There's so many things you can do that aren't but when it's not bound by any reality, you really can just throw almost anything out there. And I mean, there is some logic to fairy tales, but not a heck of a lot. And so yeah, because there's magic and mythical creatures and all sorts of stuff. So I'm like, I can make up any creature I want. Like in Fun Jungle, I can't be like, oh, I just made up an animal and now it's going to appear. I mean, luckily, there's plenty of fascinating animals that it's fun for me to use. But then, if I want to just make up something like a Stinks, which appears in the first Once Upon a Time, I just make up anything I want.
That's awesome. Yeah. And a little bit on the lighter side. So I know you've had many requests. You even talked about it in an Instagram video and a TikTok that you've had many requests from kids to make your stories paperback. They love bending the cover. And I guess, can you talk about the importance of paperback books?
I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that, I don't know how the publishing industry started out this way, that they'd be like, oh, we'll do hardbacks. And then a year later, we come out with paperbacks. I think a lot of people don't actually realize that that's what happens. And, they're like, why does a hardback come out a year before? Why is it? And honestly, the reason is like hardbacks cost more, they make more money, but there are people who want them. They last longer. They're
Right.
much better for libraries, at your school or your local library. They hold up much better, but it is much cheaper to make a paperback. And when like what I mean, this is absolutely true. Like when I was a kid, I remember meeting. I was probably in my teens before I met anybody who could afford to buy a hardcover book, and I
Hmm.
was like, "Wow, there are people out there who buy hardcovers, right?" I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's just the way the world. So So it's important. It's important for things to get out into paperback, so that it just, more people can afford them. It just took a bit longer for that to happen with Tim, unfortunately. I thought it was going to happen earlier. It took a little bit longer. Then they decided to change the art for the
Mm.
whole thing. So it actually was a long time between the hardback and the paperback release of the first book.
Well, it may have taken a little while, but now we finally have Once Upon a Time in paperback, and that's super duper exciting. It makes the stories more accessible, more kids can get their hands on them. And now, a final question that I'm curious about, and I'm sure a lot of other kids are curious about. You've written the Fun Jungle books, and you've detailed a lot of animals on the brink of extinction. You've detailed a lot of endangered species, and just animals in general, whether endangered or not. So my question for you is I read that elephants are your favorite animal, and even the chance to go on a safari to meet them. So why are elephants your favorite animals?
Why? There's a bunch of reasons. I mean, they're very smart. But they have these incredible emotional bonds, particularly the females that they
Mhm.
form these family groups that you've got generations of female elephants living together, and maybe if they encounter friends or like relatives, they get excited, like they have these emotional connections. They'll go up to each other and sort of rub their trunks over. They actually remember, like if they come across like the bones of a dead relative, they know that it's their dead relative.
Oh, wow.
They've documented them like stopping to like rub their trunks over the bones and such. Um, that's me. And then they're just kind of such improbable animals. The trunk has 40,000 muscles in it. Our bodies have something
Wow.
like 600 muscles, right? We can barely do anything, like, and yet an elephant with 40,000 muscles can, the trunk is a snorkel and a trumpet and it's a nose. And the elephants can smell water from something like 12 miles away.
That's
Uh,
incredible.
they just and they're gorgeous animals. I don't know. So yeah. Uh, I had wanted to do an elephant book forever, but I just didn't have the idea for it. And then a little while ago, I had the idea. So all ears, which is the next Fun Jungle, comes out
Hmm.
May 4th, maybe something like that. I don't know, around there.
Well, when Star Wars fans are saying "May the Fourth be with you," we'll be reading the new Fun Jungle book, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me, Stuart. It's
Sure thing.
always so much fun getting to speak with you. And, not gonna lie, I think that elephants are not my favorite animal after you
Oh,
talk
there you
about
go. I was like, if I get out there in the wild and get to see a herd of elephants, I'm happy to just sit there all day just watching elephants. Maybe not everybody feels that way, but I can do it.
it. They're very special, very unique animals. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep reading and read Stuart's books. They're awesome.